All right, guys, welcome back to the next episode of the Grand Prairie PD podcast. I'm your host, Nate, here with Whitney again.
Hello again.
KD's still out doing KD stuff. And we're here today with, well, not officer anymore.
Nope.
With investigator?
Yeah, civilian investigator,
Civilian investigator, Jeff. You used to be an officer for the department. You retired, and now you're back with the department.
Yep, I retired and was gone for about 4 years and came back last November.
Just missed it that much, or you spent all your money, or what?
Well, I'd actually gone back to school to be I moved to Virginia Beach, gone back to school to be a veterinarian technician. Was loving it, but the economy kind of took a turn, housing market took a turn, so just became a matter of economics. And came up here one day to visit some friends when I got back to Texas, and they told me about the position here, and I mean, always had a good experience here, had a long career here, knew everybody,
right,
comfortable. So, yeah, I just came back and took that position.
Awesome. When did you start here originally?
Originally, I started, my hire date was September 3rd of 1993.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Man, you take care of yourself. I got to tell you to shave it.
It's the cigars.
Right. There you go. Keep you younger.
So tell us a little bit about yourself as far as early life and how you wound up actually becoming a police officer and becoming a police officer here. Because I'm guessing from the accent and the little conversation we've had, you're not from here.
Nope, from East Dallas. Yeah, no, from.
I've been to East Dallas. It doesn't sound like that.
I grew up in New Jersey. I was born and raised in New Jersey. Went to college in New Jersey. Thought I originally wanted to be a chef. I was going to go to culinary school.
Very cool.
Yeah, but ended up, I used to commute to my college, and I used to drive up and down the highway every day and see the New Jersey State Police. Mm-hmm. And I was kind of impressed with their image and, just seeing them all the time. So I kind of started to change focus and thought about having a career in law enforcement. Tried to get hired in New Jersey, but New Jersey at the time, it was very much who you knew. If you didn't have a connection with the departments or anything like that, you probably weren't going to get hired.
Really?
That's changed a lot. Now they have a statewide test. So had a cousin who lived out here, wasn't a police officer, told me I should come out and visit. So came out and visited. He had a couple friends who were police officers. One was an Austin officer and the other was an Arlington officer. Did a ride-along, which you couldn't do in New Jersey. Yeah, they didn't have those. Was just blown away with the ride-along experience. Couldn't believe it. The officers that I met were great. I thought it was excellent. The way they approach law enforcement out here was very different than the attitude I was seeing back east in New Jersey.
How's that?
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. When I went to get a packet in New Jersey, you'd walk into PD, there'd be a desk officer there. He'd never look up at you. I'm like, hi, I'm here to get a packet to apply. And he wouldn't even look at you. He'd just drop the packet on the desk and be like, have it back in a week. You didn't feel like they wanted you. That was kind of the impression. Like, you didn't feel like they were really looking for you. When I came out here and met the officers that I rode with, they were very much talking up, the agencies, talking up the job. Even when I went to pick up my packet here and all, they spent time with you, talked to you. So it was much more appealing,
Yeah.
So I had no intention of moving to Texas, not farthest thing off my radar. Although I did test with Arlington PD when I came out here, just in the 2 weeks I was out here.
Sure.
And I was so impressed with just the way the people were, the friendliness of Texans and everything.
Yeah.
I went back, I talked to my father, and I was like, I think I'm going to move to Texas. He was like, okay. I graduated college. I didn't have anything holding me back.
Mm-hmm.
I was 22 at the time. So I came out here and opened the phone book, applied to over 20 departments, not knowing.
wow.
Yeah, I just didn't know, because back then, too, it took at least a year to get hired.
Yeah.
So I opened up the phone book, applied to like 20 departments. I was living here in Grand Prairie and just ended up, I had got a job offer with Wichita Falls PD and Grand Prairie PD. And since I was living down here and knew people already after a year, I ended up staying here.
Right.
How long did that take, the process of applying? How long was that overall?
It was almost exactly a year from the time I got out here till the time my start date was. I got out here in September of 92, September 5th of 92, and my hire date was September 3rd of 93.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But I just opened up the phone book as soon as I got out here and started applying.
Hey, did you have any kind of support system here already, or you just kind of rolled in by yourself with like that friend you knew?
I had a second cousin who lived out here. He was the one that got me to come out here. But he was great. I lived with them for about 4 months.
Oh, cool.
So I didn't know anybody else, though. Didn't know anybody. It was a little nerve-wracking, not knowing anybody. You know, just having cousins. Worked different jobs when I got out here.
That's what I was wondering, too, if you did anything for work while you're waiting on the...
I worked at Buzz Post doing make ready. Buzz Post was no longer here. It was an old car dealership.
Okay.
I did make ready, washing and cleaning cars. I worked for a very short stint at airport security before it was actually airport security. It was basically, here's your uniform. I was working nights and basically sit in a chair and do nothing. So, I just, jobs keep me busy until I work through the process of getting hired. So, and I had a support staff of the 2 guys that were officers out here. They really helped me a lot. One was Chris Matthews, an Arlington officer, and others Jeff White, who was an Austin PD officer. And I'll tell you, if it wasn't for them, I probably would have went home because it was just, they kept me so motivated. Yeah. And so that helped a lot.
Once you actually got hired on and started the academy, that kind of helped you be a little bit more focused on that your one task?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was all I wanted to do, was become a police officer. So going to the academy, to have a job that actually, I was excited to be getting paid to go to school. I was like, this is great, But yeah, once the beauty for me was I just focused exclusively on that, doing good in the academy, went to the academy with some great guys who worked here, really formed some friendships and bonds. So yeah, that helped me definitely keep focused.
Yeah. What, I guess whenever you started, obviously, it was a much different time than it is now. So like a lot of times I tend to ask people if the job was kind of in line with what they expected through the lens of today.
Right.
But I guess back then, was it pretty much what you thought you're going into, or was it a little different than what you expected?
I didn't know really what I mean, I thought I had an idea of what it was going to be.
Yeah.
It was a little different. It was a little more intense than I thought. But all in all, I think it was in line with, what I think it was, what I had in mind for what it was going to be. I guess I didn't realize, too, how, you realize you play the role of you wear many different hats. And that I didn't realize so much, But no, it was kind of in line. I think it helped, too, that I had really great training officers, FTOs, and I think that makes a big difference, kind of getting you comfortable with what you're going to encounter. It wasn't a shock. Like, I'm like, okay, this is pretty much what I expect.
Right. Yeah. Any of your FTOs still here?
JJ Wallace.
Okay.
JJ could tell you some stories. Yeah. JJ could tell you some stories. Yeah.
We actually had him on here. He did. He was a fun interview.
Yeah. He's trained a lot. Well, a lot of the guys he trained are gone now. He trained Jim Hannigan. He trained many of us. And if you ask him, he'll tell you we tested his patience.
Yeah.
We tested his patience.
It's not hard to test his patience.
No.
Sometimes I'll ask him a question and I see his wheels turn. And I'm just like, don't yell at me.
I know, yeah. And he's great sense of sarcasm.
I wonder, was there any, it may not be, could be big or small, but cultural differences, considering from the East and then coming now here, Texas, and now interworkings here, amongst people, but citizens too? Were there, big things you had to kind of catch on? Or was it just easy to transition?
I think the biggest cultural thing for me wasn't so much from the citizens. I got a lot of ribbon from the officers for being a Yankee.
Right.
Yeah. That was, cultural things were some of the terms I noticed. I'll tell you, the friendliness, the openness of Texans was insane. I remember one of the things that blew my mind was free refills. I mean, in Jersey, you go back. In Jersey, you go back after you get a drink and take it and go sit down. That's theft. So I'm like, it was just little things like that. I mean, it doesn't sound like a big deal, but just people were just so much more friendly and open. And like I said, the most, I guess, ribs I got was from guys here, getting called a Yankee and, the typical, go back east.
Right.
It was all in good fun, though. I mean, it was, damn Yankee.
Yeah.
So
Are you a sports fan?
What? Not your typical mainstream ones. I was more I wrestled in high school, and so I follow more collegiate wrestling and Olympic style wrestling and stuff like that. I like watching MMA, but this won't be popular. I don't watch a lot of sports, but I always check to see if the Cowboys are losing. So I'll need to check my car when I go outside after this.
Now, did you come with that attitude, or did you develop that just attitude from the way you're treated here?
Growing up in Jersey, I was a Steelers fan because when I was younger, it was always the Steelers and the Cowboys. You know, so grew up a Steelers fan. What really got me about the Cowboys out here was when I came out here, it was when they were winning, you know, always in the playoffs, winning the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And it just, everywhere you went, like you go to the grocery store and they had the shirts, I mean, it was like every Cowboy seemed to have their own talk show. I was just like, it was everywhere, you know? So it just, so obviously, you know, being from the East and not being a Cowboys fan did not go over very well.
Right, yeah.
You know?
That's why I asked about sports, because like we'll give you a little bit of crap, or like the guys from California coming in, the real estate market being what it is, everybody gives them a hard time. But if you come in as a sports fan of wherever you're from, it makes it 1,000 times worse.
Yeah. I actually think I got invited to a lot of the Super Bowl parties and stuff because it was always fun to have the one person who you could yell at and scream at, you know, instead of everybody who loves the Cowboys. So but they let me stay, so it was okay.
Man, hearing about Dallas Cowboys Super Bowl parties.
Nice. Apparently there hasn't been one in a long time.
Yeah, it's been a little bit.
We're working on it. There's a plan.
That's it.
So tell us a little bit about whenever you first started.
Yeah.
Obviously, you finished FTO. You hit the streets. What was that like? If you have like any embarrassing stories, don't hesitate to share them.
Yeah.
If people who know me, I can they basically call them Jeffreyism. I've got embarrassing stories that would take hours. I've done many stupid things in my career.
I don't want to go back to my desk. So
Well, right off the bat first I'll start with when I started. I remember this day, the first time I, pulled out of the parking lot on my own in the squad car. It was like you didn't even think about what was going on outside your car. It was just like, oh my God, I'm doing this, Of course, it was super nervous because it was like, I don't know everything. You never know everything in this job. And I was like, what if I go to a call and I don't know what to do? And you start to learn, there's senior guys out there that'll help you, your academy mates that are out there. It was very much, back then too, like you picked your beats. And at that time, I basically started my patrol career in our Dalworth area because a lot of the senior guys had enough. They didn't want to work, that beat. It was mainly that beat was mainly open narcotic sales at that time. It was just lots of drug traffic, drug sales, and so that's kind of where I started my career, and that's what led me down the road of really enjoying narcotics. I had a great time. I mean, I came to work. I was excited. As soon as the shift would start, I'd always get here early. I'd be here. Our shift started at 3:00. I'd be here like 2:15. Loved coming to work, and just liked to be active, liked to get into things. And it was at that time, even like it is now, it was a work mentality. They wanted you working, so that part was. I mean, I guess not that it came easy, but I wanted to work. I wanted to be here. So, and department was very very supportive of us doing our job. Do it right, but get out there and earn your pay. So, once I got out there on my own, I didn't have a hard time, I guess, adjusting to anything else. I mean, it was just I just wanted to learn. At that point, all I wanted to do was learn and get better. And that, like I said, at the time, narcotics seemed to be really where I was starting to drift to. So I wanted to learn as much as I could about that.
Do you feel like whenever you mentioned that you wrestled, did you feel like that kind of gave you an added level of confidence going into another? Because, open air narcotics sales specifically, not uncommon for those interactions to end in foot chases, end in fights. You're in houses that you aren't familiar with. Other people may not know where you are. Did that combat sport background kind of give you a level of comfort to be in those situations as a young officer?
100%. To this day, I even talk about that, how a lot of guys have never been in a physical confrontation. And growing up, I had fights, but not many. I mean, didn't have many at all. Wrestling made me comfortable being in contact, like, fighting with somebody. That was a huge part. It gave me confidence. I think wrestling was great for I mean, taught me everything: discipline, hard work. Like I said, a great skill to have to, in an altercation. But yeah, I definitely would say that that helped a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good background to have.
What you have any crazy story? Because when you talk about like narcotics, you talking about from an undercover perspective, at least in the beginning, or you just?
I did. I started. Initially, we weren't doing much undercover initially, but so we were just working informants. Then we went. We had a new sergeant, and he did want us to do more undercover. So yeah, I did undercover. That's where I started. Basically, was plainclothes narcotics, and then over the years, it expanded to other units. But yeah, that's what I started doing. Narcotics.
So you went to narcotics from patrol?
Spent 6 months in property because back then it was a requirement. You had to go to property first.
Okay.
And then after property, then I went to narcotics in 2001. Yeah.
Okay.
Spent about 3 years in narcotics here, and then I was lucky enough. I ended up going 3 years to HIDTA, one of the federal task forces, for 3 years, and that was a great experience. So yeah.
That's awesome. What was the I guess your focus in HIDTA?
HIDTA was more, the unit I was in did what was called Title III, basically wire cases. It was more large scale. They went after
like phone tapping, that kind of
yep,
stuff.
Okay. Phone tap. Yeah, very much into conspiracy cases where they would try and they'd work from maybe something simple as a traffic stop that turned, moved up the ladder. And then they were actually doing cases that, reached over into Mexico. But they went after a lot of the larger scale type investigations. They were more interested in federal charges, obviously.
Right.
And it was, you do months and months of investigation, surveillance. Every now and then you take off, basically make an arrest. And then they would wrap it up, months later. Or it could be up to a year.
Yeah.
Different, like I said, different than our level, being at the PD level, just because, one, you have resources that, you're not going to see here.
Right.
Plus, you have guys from multiple agencies working, so you have that, interagency cooperation, guys that can, you kind of can go everywhere. So yeah, that was a little bit more. That wasn't really undercover.
That's what I was about to ask.
Yeah.
I imagine it's a little less dynamic.
Actually, most of the guys who did undercover, because of the size and the dynamics, a lot of the undercover work was done by Hispanic officers.
Sure.
Because you're dealing with, a lot of the guys from Mexico and stuff. And one, they didn't trust, regular English-speaking guys. They trusted, the guy who could speak Spanish. So those were the guys doing a lot of UC at the time. Because again, it was just who you were dealing with. But I played more of a support. My role was more, do surveillance. You'd work with a case agent, so you'd be a co-case agent. So you'd help write warrants and just other things, prepare for trial. But mostly it seemed like a lot of it was surveillance for the most part, organizing, like trying to stop a car, to kind of confirm what you're hearing on the phone, intercept. So yeah, it was a great experience, worked with some great people, learned a lot. And to this day, made contacts. That was another great thing. When you come back here, you have contacts at a bunch of different departments, so helps out a lot when somebody needs something.
Right. Whenever you wrapped up your time in HIDTA, what did you come back to?
Came back to patrol for about 2 years. Yeah, came back to patrol. And that was nice just to come back and get back into the mindset of, what you originally signed on for.
Right.
And then after 2 years of that, I ended up going to what was at the time directed patrol, which was the uniformed, kind of the equivalent of the old power shift. It was same thing. We'd address problem areas, I guess like deployment unit now.
Right.
If we weren't doing anything, we worked, like Dowworth, the open drug sales, or we'd handle narcotics complaints. But any problem that came up a lot of times, whether it was down South Grand Prairie, wherever it was, and it needed more manpower, more attention, that's what we would do. Then it kind of drifted when Sergeant Robinson had it, kind of drifted to more starting to focus on narcotic type stuff, where we would actually start writing our own search warrants, kind of working informants. Some days you'd come in uniform, other days you'd come in plain clothes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's pretty much what that was. It became mostly narcotics focused.
Right, because he was narcotics for a long time, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was a very long time. Yeah.
So was that period after his stint in narcotics?
Yeah, he had worked narcotics at a previous department, and then came here, and then he was working narcotics when I went into narcotics. He'd been there for a few years, and then like 2 weeks after I got there, he promoted to sergeant.
Okay.
But narcotics was always his thing.
Right.
I mean, that was always his interest. So eventually he ended up the direct patrol sergeant, and then sergeant over the narcotics and direct patrol.
Okay. What do you I know you mentioned it's his interest as well, but what do you think drew you to narcotics enforcement specifically as opposed to anything else?
One, I saw it as the problem behind almost all our other crimes, like our burglaries, our thefts. Most of those people were addicted to drugs, were doing that to fund their drugs.
Yeah.
Assault case, I mean, if you look at every case that we work, even now being in domestic violence, so many of our cases have drugs behind them. The person's using drugs. It's like the root of, it's one of the things that are involved in all our crimes, it seems like. You go to persons, there's drugs involved. So I just saw it as, you're kind of addressing all the issues with that. On the more selfish side, I loved the game of trying to, in narcotics, you really have to learn investigative skills. You really need to know investigations because it's not a black and white area, it's a gray area. And you've got to know the laws, you've got to know your search and seizure. So one, it's a great place to learn, all of those things you can apply anywhere in the department. But two, the game of using the parameters I'm allowed, can I find your drugs? Can I get your drugs?
Right.
And then from there, can you enhance your interview skills and try and work somebody to move up or get additional information. So to me, it was, from the personal side, it was such a challenge, and I just felt any excitement. I mean, I'm not going to lie, it was exciting. It led to chases, foot chases. It was. I just thought it was one of the. It seemed almost glamorous. It was almost like this is what I want to do. So I think that's all part of what led me down to narcotics.
Yeah. I know when I first started, and it may still be this way, but the narcotics guys were always like, those are the badasses. Those are the guys who are like real top secret and like, you may even not depending on how big your department is, you may not even know who they are. You're just like, that guy is supposed to be here. Like, everybody checked his ID.
Oh yeah.
So there's definitely kind of that glamour aspect to it too.
And it was, like I said, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it felt good, but and like I said, it's one of the units where you are forced to learn a lot, and it's stuff that will benefit you no matter what. No matter what unit you're in.
What do you think? Why do you think that you? I mean, do you think you went up learning more in that unit specifically than others, or do you think that role necessitated learning more?
I think that role necessitated learning more because, again, like with your search and seizure laws. I think you have to know what you can and cannot do.
Yeah.
It's not. I mean, every unit has its things that you have to be good at, specifics at. But again, I think narcotics just kind of encompasses all of that. Your search and seizure. What you need to get warrants, how to write. That was the other thing. Taught me how to write warrants, how to write an arrest warrant, how to write a search warrant, how to work informants. So it leads you to your interviewing. How to interview people. So I think, and like I said, every unit I know has its own, specifics, but I think narcotics just gives you a wide view or a wide experience to take other places, and you really learn your laws.
Yeah.
How were you able, as far as just like that learning style, since you're moving from different, of course, narcotics, patrol, then go out, then come back, would you apply the same, the same learning style each time? Or would you just think of something, okay, this is what I'm doing now, I'm going to kind of adjust? Or did you have the same method each time as you're learning?
I think the narcotics end of it overlapped into a lot of things. But of course, when I was in patrol, you couldn't just know your narcotics. You had to learn, how to do the everyday stuff. So I just, whatever my assignment was, I just always tried to learn what I needed in that assignment, just whether by getting help from other people, learning, how to do it, or just my experience. But it was I think I kind of used the same learning method most of, my career pretty much. And by no means did I learn everything to this day.
No.
And you ask people I work with now to this day, I'm in there a lot asking, I got a question. So, and you know what? That's another great thing about this job is you never know it all.
Right.
I mean, you can have people with years of experience and you're going to come across one day that situation that nobody's seen, you know, and it's like, you know, like when I was an FTO, I used to tell my recruits, you know, right off the bat, look, I don't know everything. I'm not going to know everything, but I know where to find the answer. So if you have a question, I will get back to you and get you that answer.
Right.
Because we all don't know everything, and don't think you're ever going to learn everything.
No.
Yeah.
I found the key. One of the keys was if you have a question, ask it before you make a decision, as opposed to making the decision and going, "Hey, Sarge, so somebody might have done this thing, and I was wondering, is that legal?"
Yeah, no. And that's the thing. Don't be afraid, you know, don't be afraid to ask questions. I mean, you know, like I said, I worked in so many different units, but I never, you know, this is, you know, kind of an insult to myself, and a lot of my friends have heard me say it, but I believe you got to know what your limitations are and what you're capable of. And people have always heard me say it. I've never been the brains of the operation.
Yeah.
It's the truth. I am the person, you know, I love being a team player. If you need help, you call me out. I've always been available for call outs. I'm at work. I will do what you need. If you need something, I will get it done. You know, if you need somebody to lead surveillance or do anything, I'll do it. But when it comes to the planning and the actual, you know, investigation itself or, you know, which way to go, that was never my strong point.
Yeah.
And don't pretend it is, because it's not. You know, if it's not, don't pretend it is. And, you know, we can all contribute a certain way. You know, everybody's got their strong point.
Right.
And that's why when you're in a small unit, what's great is everybody has a strength, and you can, you know, okay, he's good at this, he can do that. I'm good at this. So, yeah, you just have to, I think, just, you know, and then work on your weaknesses. You know, if you have a weakness, work on it. But
like you said, it only really works if you're honest with yourself about what that is.
Absolutely.
Because if you're not, like me, I'm not good at interviewing. I'm a very straightforward type of, like I was talking to Hannigan, he and I are very similar in that way. I'm like, hey, look, this is what I have. I know it's you. Can we save some time? And you just say, yes, you did it. And I'm not good at playing the game and pretending like I care about you, because I feel like you know that I don't care at all.
Right.
And like it's not effective. But if we're in a small unit, especially like a narcotics unit, and every single time we make an arrest, I'm like, oh, I want to interview him. That's wasting everybody's time, and that's probably, you know, messed up investigations. So yeah, I can definitely see that being super important to be self-aware.
yeah, you just, like I said, I've always felt that was a strength of mine, even though there's weaknesses in it. You know, just, you know, try and learn, try and improve your weakness. But, you know, there's somebody in that unit who's better at it, and you know, it's just that's going to be their thing. That's why you're a team. That's the thing with the you know, team concept. Yep.
Now, in all your experiences in these different units, you kind of mentioned that you have a couple of stories that are embarrassing. But is anything just boneheaded that you did that you can talk about?
You know, people watching this would be like, oh, there's a gazillion ones.
Right.
A lot of them are small things, but they're just typical everything. Like, I was known for accidents. I had so many accidents in my career.
Car accidents?
Oh, yeah. I never received a 5-year safe driving award.
Wow.
Never. I think I'm one of the only people that took out 2 CID vehicles in one shot by myself. Yeah.
How'd you manage that?
I mean, Chris Evans were on our way to Mansfield to try and locate a guy that was wanted on some felony family violence warrants. And we were at a traffic light, and light turned green, and I went for it, and Chris was in front of me. Chris didn't go for it.
No.
So I rear-ended Chris. So I took out 2 of our vehicles. Then there was one time I thought I was going to save some poor citizen from being killed by a rolling tire down Jefferson. A tire came off a vehicle, started hauling butt down the street. So I speed up trying to get it. I'm going to knock it down with my front bumper. Only ended up high-centering my vehicle on top of the tire.
Holy crap.
Never saw that coming. I've done so, yeah. You know the Bank One parking lot over there, the big Bank One across from where the old PD was? One of our retired officers, Glenn Gibson, and me were parked in the parking lot one time, and Sunday afternoon, nobody there, not a single car in the parking lot, nothing there. We pull off. I don't know what I was doing. Drove right into one of those light pole things, And then I went to get out of the car. I couldn't get out of the car because the door was jammed. I mean, I have so many, like, it's just, I probably can't even remember all the funny stories I have. Some, would probably not be better said, but I just had a history of doing dumb things. It's like, I mean, like I said, you talk to the guys I worked with, it's just, I don't know. I don't know if I don't think it through or it's just, I mean, like I said, accidents. The only suspension days I ever had in this department were for accidents and lost pagers. And pagers tells you how long I've been here.
Oh.
They suspended you for pagers?
Yeah, well, I lost like 3.
Oh.
Yeah,
Like you just forget about it or leave it?
They fall
or
off,
like,
or I don't know. And they were like the real inexpensive ones.
Yeah.
And then I had accidents, just constantly having accidents. In fact, when I got suspended, Chief Crum was our chief at the time. I had to go see him. I walked into his office, and he's like, Jeff, he goes, I have to give you days off. He goes, because you've had so many accidents. I'm like, I know, Chief. He's like, but the next time you come in here, can we talk about, like, fishing and hunting and stuff like that instead of me having to give you a suspension day? So I was like, I'll try, but it's not going to be easy. Yeah, so like I said, to think of funny stories, like I said, I mean, I've done so many. Guys could probably tell you story after story of things I've done.
That's how it always works.
Yeah, it's like, I just, like I said, some I probably aren't good to talk about.
Right. Any foot chases?
Oh yeah. I had working like the Dalworth area. I had so many foot chases, vehicle chases.
You were talking a minute ago about something on railroad tracks or catching somebody on railroad tracks.
Yeah, when I went back to patrol, there was in like 2014, 2015, I had encountered a guy across the tracks over an apartment complex, and he was on foot. He walked up to me, asked me some questions, drove off. Later, I saw him and another guy in a vehicle at another apartment complex on the north side of Main Street. Mm-hmm. Ran the plate, came back stolen. I called for another unit. Before that other unit could get there, they pulled out. I went to light them up. Chase was on. It was about noon, very busy down on Main Street. He was driving he wasn't driving to get away. I always describe it as he was driving to, like he was on drugs. Like he was just a nut. He was driving wrong lane of traffic. Mm-hmm. We ended up turning around on Main Street up near kind of where the training center is on Main Street. They happened to have a school that day, so there were officers from all different agencies. On the way back, he started driving at like probably 80 miles an hour into oncoming traffic.
Jeez.
I called the chase off. I terminated it because he was definitely going to kill somebody. Mm-hmm. Shut it down. As I come over a little bend, I see dust and everybody in the road. Gentleman was turning. He had the green light. He was turning. And this guy T-boned him, ejected the gentleman from the vehicle, killed him. He bails out, starts running over the railroad tracks. The other passenger gets out, but he's confronted by like 20 officers who were coming out from lunch. Right. And chased him, caught him on the other side of the tracks near one of the side streets. Went to trial on that. He ended up getting 35 years. But
cool.
Yeah, that kind of changed. That changed the excitement though. After that, of pursuits, I never looked at him again the same way because you realize. I mean, I was a totally innocent person. Mm-hmm. Just on his way home for his anniversary, he was an older gentleman, probably in his 60s. Yes. So that was horrible. That was one of the worst things in my career. Yeah. Glad I caught the guy because I definitely didn't want him to get away with it. Yeah. But, like I said, that kind of changed the excitement of pursuits for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of guys, if they do it long enough, they kind of have a moment or two where there's some realization of just what the stakes are. Yeah. Because it's always a kind of a weird thing to try to explain to civilians that it's like, it almost sounds like you want bad things to happen as a cop, but you don't. No. You just want the opportunity to do your job and to apply your training. And unfortunately, the nature of our job, that requires bad things to have happened first usually. But once you get involved in some of these situations where it's like, hey, we do the fun part, but then especially like with what you do now, like the domestic situations, some incredibly dangerous circumstances that you get to apply a lot of what you've trained, and you get the guy in custody, but then you're left with the aftermath of what actually happened
Right.
before you got there, or the chases and the aftermath after everything's over. So a lot of humbling moments throughout people's careers usually.
Yeah.
It definitely, like I said, it definitely changed you. It goes from the early years of being super excited, you feel invincible.
Yeah.
That's what it is. You feel invincible, and you do things because you think you are invincible.
Right.
And then as you get older, or not even older, but you've been in this profession long enough, you start to realize you're not invincible.
Yeah.
Sadly and tragically, you see fellow officers who end up being killed in the line of duty.
Yeah.
Guys who are injured, just the things that this job will do to you, and then it becomes, it was always exciting, always a challenge, but again, you start to realize you have limits,
Right.
and don't take the unnecessary. Because the bottom line is, at the end of the day, is it worth it? If you crash, wreck out, and say the bad guy gets away or whatever, was it worth having a crash? Was it worth having an accident?
Right.
Because you're the one who's going to be injured.
Yeah.
And you got your family to think about. So it's definitely over time it changes your perspective.
Yeah.
He just mentioned family. I'm just curious to know, when did family become family? Because you were here single.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Met my wife here, actually, which is something I never thought I would do. In 90, end of 93, was it 94? Oh, she's going to kill me. I got here September.
I'm sure
So it was
she won't
90, July. Yeah. It was basically our first time we went out was July 4th after work. She was working dispatch at the time. It was July 4th of 94. I met her, like I said, she was a dispatcher. And started dating here and ended up getting married in 97 and been together since. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, that's a big part of a career too, I think.
So did your FTO not say don't talk to dispatchers?
Don't
It was.
Do not.
It was. That was told in the academy. Like I said, it was. And that's why I say it's amazing, because you're warned about it, told about it, and everything, and you failed to listen. Luckily, in my situation, because we all know there's horror stories.
Yeah.
Luckily, in my situation, it worked out.
There you go.
It turned out well. But I ignored the warnings. Yeah. So
That's funny. Whenever y'all first got together, everybody just give you just like, this is stupid.
It was funny because the first 6 months we kept it a secret. We didn't let anybody know.
Oh, yeah.
Because, of that reason and all. And then, luckily, though, with her, everything that everybody told me was she kind of keeps to herself. She's quiet. She, she hadn't dated anybody else that I knew of or anything. And I didn't get too much ribbing. She had a good reputation, too, as well. So I think that helped.
Oh, yeah.
So, yep. But, I never thought I'd marry a dispatcher, because we were just so warned about it.
Yeah, there's a stigma.
Yeah, definitely. But you know what? Too, in this profession, you don't, especially when you're new. Like when I started, we worked 8-hour days. I worked 3 to 11s, and I was not off weekends or holidays.
Right.
So it's you don't have a lot of places to meet people,
Right.
or people in your circle. It's a very difficult, circle to run in, because you're working when everyone else is, off.
So you have to break that rule and go ahead and
you got. I mean, how else are you going to meet anybody?
Yeah.
And it's funny because when we first met, my very first encounter with her was we came to pick up our paychecks while we were in the academy, and we came in. She was working PBX at the time, which was like the front, and came in. We all thought we were real cool. We were like, hey, yeah, we're recruits. We're here to pick up our paychecks. She's like, who are you? So when we walk out, I'm like, that girl's up. That was my first impression. That was the first thing I thought about her, yeah. So we laugh about that now. I'm like,
That's funny.
I'm like, God. And here we are 30 years later. So apparently I misjudged it.
Hey.
That's funny. Makes you funny better. The first time I met my wife, I was drunk and called her.
Oh, see?
Yeah.
So first impressions aren't always a bad thing.
Right.
Aren't always correct.
Yeah.
That's funny. How is that dynamic as far as having your career here, and then she's working here as well? She understands the job.
Yeah.
And she understands what you're actually doing day in, day out.
I think for us, that helped a lot because she was here for like 5 years before she started her next career. And, you know, I hear a lot of guys say they don't bring work home with them or they don't talk about it at home. I would tell her what went on at work. And I think it helped the fact that she had an idea because being a dispatcher, she sees. So I think that was one of the things that helped our relationship as compared to when a guy comes in, he was working a regular job, 9 to 5 or whatever. His wife's used to the weekends off, the holidays off. You're always there at night and things like that. And then you start this career where when you're new, you're working 3 to 11 or 11 to 7 in the morning. You're working holidays. You're not there for family time.
Right.
So for us, I think that was a huge dynamic that helped. She was very understanding of it. She was I worked so many units in my career, and she was supportive of everything.
Yeah.
She was supportive of everything because her big line, always remember to this day, was, it doesn't matter the quantity of time that we have when you're home, it's the quality. So when you're home, we're going to do things. She dealt with call-outs for years. But I think, like you said, back to your original question, I think knowing what the job entailed, because she was around it, made a big difference than someone who has no idea and has a hard time understanding. I don't understand why you have to go in. I don't understand why you're late, So I think that's very helpful.
That's awesome. You mentioned as far as like dealing with call-outs and stuff like that. I hadn't really touched on you're in a unit, or you were in a unit. I guess you still are, sort of.
Yeah, I don't do call-outs in this unit right now.
Well, right, but you were you were domestic crimes when you were a detective.
Yes.
One of those jobs I could never do for a wide variety of reasons. Do you feel like that's the most difficult position you're in, or the most challenging? I guess explain a little bit about domestic violence to the
domestic violence. We obviously handle crimes involving husband, wives, partners, roommates, any type of intimate relationship or any type of like cohabitating situation. It's difficult because it covers so many different offenses. Like, it's not just like assault, family violence. There's a lot of dynamics to it. It's another unit where you really have to be able to learn, and that unit probably took me the longest to learn things in.
Right.
Because every scenario is different. I think one of the great things about that unit was we had the ability to round table. And even when I came back in the unit I'm in now, with the group I'm with now, every day somebody's round tabling. You have people with years of experience.
What's a round table?
Basically, we'll get a case, and you're looking at it, and there's just so many dynamics to it, or things aren't clear. You go in, and we're like, all right, let me read you this case. And we read it to the group, and everybody gets their input and kind of weigh it out. And
more of a collective decision than just you staring at a screen and deciding which way to go.
And I honestly don't think I could do that job without having that ability.
Really?
Like, if we were, even when I was a sworn officer and I was working that unit, if I would have just had to make that decision on my own, I don't know if I could have done it, because you just so many, the different experiences each detective has. And the bottom line is you want to do right by your victim.
Right.
You don't want to, cause your victim to, be victimized again by us. Right. So I think that's one of the big things that is a plus in that unit. It's a working unit. It's very busy, as you can imagine.
Very.
And like I said, you just have a wide variety of cases. It's always changing. It always seems like the laws change with domestic violence. And then it's difficult for the officers because they have to deal with so many things on the street, not just domestic violence.
Right.
So, things that we're wanting from them or require from them, it's not easy when you're handling 30 calls and you're working all these reports. So it's kind of, you're trying to get them to get what you need, but you can't be their sole focus. They have so many other responsibilities. So, and so we try and work with them, and, but it's definitely one of my more, definitely one of the more challenging units. I think the most challenging thing I ever did was work my narcotics dog, though, hands down.
Oh, right. I know you had a dog.
Yeah. When you
I actually did know that. I saw your pictures up there.
When you said challenging unit, it immediately made me think of that, though. Just
really?
Yeah.
What made that so unique?
My partner. My partner made it unique because that unit, I was the first one to have a sole purpose narcotics dog. Sergeant Robinson got that ball rolling. So we'd have a dog for the unit because we were always trying to call dogs out.
Right.
I didn't have any experience. Basically, it was Jeff loves dogs.
I was going to say, were you at least a dog person?
It was like Jeff loves dogs.
Yeah.
Jeff loves animals. Would you like to do it? And I was like, absolutely.
Sure.
So she was a female lab. Wasn't a big dog, but so I went to school, learned how to work her. And everyone told me that first year is going to be tough because you're going to be getting to learn, with each other. So it was one of those things. You trained all the time. That taught me a lot about laws too, because I had to keep up on, again, search and seizure, canine laws, and those changed a lot. And working with her, learning her personality, getting her used to me used to her. And we were going to work one day. It's probably one of the most stressful years of my career. We were going to work one day, and everyone joked that I was going to spoil her and make her a house pet, which I didn't, but everyone's like, you're going to ruin her.
Yeah.
But she was a lab. You couldn't treat her the same way you treat like our patrol dogs and stuff, just different personalities. One day I'm going to get in the car at work because I had a take-home car, and I'm like, come on, girl. She just looks at me, yawned, and sat down on our walk at the house. And I'm like, come on, girl. And she wouldn't budge. She would not get in the car. So I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah.
So I'm like, let's go. She just lays down.
What?
I'm like, what the heck? So I pick her up, put her in the car. For some reason, that started months of where, like, if I got her out on a traffic stop to run on a car, she would do her job, but then she wouldn't get back in the car. And it was so embarrassing to be. I'll never forget one time I was standing at like 19th and like Houston or so, just ran on a car. I'm like, all right, girl, load up. She just lays down in the street. And I'm like, Sarah, get in the car. And she's like, I had to go pick her up and put her in the car. Like, it was so stressful because this went on for almost a year. And I don't know what it was. I talked to other trainers, and they were like, they're like, actually, it happens sometimes. They're like, sometimes you can count it. And I just worked with it. I put her food in the car to try to get her to go in the car. And then one day, snapped back, and she went back to herself. But that was probably one of the most enjoyable, challenging jobs I had. But I loved it because we got used for a lot of agencies called us, making the connections at HIDTA. Those guys would call us all the time. So I'd go to Arlington. I'd help out federal agencies. That was probably one of the highlight assignments I've had at this place.
That's crazy. You literally did everything.
Yeah.
I was lucky.
Yeah.
I was very lucky. I got to work a lot of units. I got to have a lot of experiences. Yeah, I had a very good career from my perspective. I mean, like I said, I got to experience a lot of things, be part of a lot of units. Yeah, I mean, I had a good time. I really did. But I knew when it was time to leave, it was time to leave.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I got to work a lot of different specialized units.
Yeah. Any units you weren't a part of?
Oh yeah, I didn't work like I worked a lot. I didn't work like majors. I never worked majors. Was never at the lake. Didn't do auto theft. The units I worked were patrol, a couple years on SWAT, directed patrol, power shift, property, domestic violence, and then I had the K9.
Right.
I think, yeah, those were.
And you were in domestic violence whenever you left.
Yeah, I was in domestic violence from 2015 to 2018. Yeah,
okay.
And I retired in December of 2018. Yeah.
Okay. What's it like being back? I mean, not just like personally, but you're not sworn, so I imagine there's a lot of technical differences. Oh
yeah. One, it was crazy coming back here because the day I drove out of here when I retired, I was like, I'll never see this place again.
Yeah.
And I had actually left once before. I left in '99. I went to DEA actually for like an extremely short time, like I'm talking weeks,
right.
And ended up thinking I need to go back to the city. So I'd left once before. So it feels like I never actually get away. But coming back to civilian was definitely different. I'm only able to do certain things. Right. Of course, you're limited. It was nice coming back doing the job I left because I just had to learn a little bit, catch up. But as far as being back, I mean, I worked a civilian job. I worked at a vet office, and I worked with great people, worked for a great company. Probably one of the best jobs I could have had when I retired to, have a positive experience. But when I came back, it was, there's nothing like being with the people you spent years and years, with this job. I mean, it's family. You're familiar with the people, the job, the culture. So that part was nice about it. Like I said, I never thought I'd be back. I never thought I'd be doing this, but again, it's comfortable. It's easy to slide back in and do what you did before.
Well, too, being around cops.
Yeah.
Because I mean it's a very unique group of people. I think. I mean, it's similar to like military, but the things that you deal with and you kind of all have shared experiences, if not in the situation, certainly at least similar situations. You're all a little off in the same way. Oh
yeah, and that's the thing when you go from here and working in a civilian job, you definitely cannot. There's a huge difference in sense of humor, a huge difference in the things you're doing. And like I said, when I left, I went to do the other job, the other career. It was, couldn't be more opposite.
Right.
So you really, like I said, you're really leaving that whole mentality behind. We're trying to anyway. But you never, to me, being a police officer was like a career, a chosen profession. It was like a calling. You always hear people say it's a calling. So when I left, you never give up that feeling. Like, you see other officers out there and you still feel part of that group and you want to be part of that group. So coming back, like I said, when I showed up here my first day, I remember thinking, I cannot believe I'm back.
Right.
Like, what happened? How did I end up 4 years later? Here I am again. So I just realized, what? I'll never, this is where I'm always going to be, which says a lot because if it was not a place I wanted to be, I wouldn't come back. But this place has been great to me.
Yeah.
They always took me back. And like I said, I've had a chance to have a great career here, pretty much do the positions work positions I wanted to. There's a reason I keep coming back.
Yeah. Do they, whenever you came back, did they let you have a car or no?
No. They don't want me leaving the building.
Right.
That's the only thing I always like. If I got to go do something, I always have to go talk to one of my coworkers. I'm like, you guys want to run me out here somewhere?
That's funny.
Can I take? No car. No car. No overtime. No call out.
That's big.
How was that?
Huge. Yeah. It's great because when I worked here before, I was always one of those people that felt when you're in a specialized unit, you need to be available for call out. Like that phone, I'm sorry, it has to be attached to you. You need to answer your phone when called. If it's 2 a.m, answer that phone.
Yeah.
And so I always had my email connected. I always had my phone forwarded. And
your desk phone?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No.
So it drove me nuts because I would get a call on the weekend that would just hang over my head, and I'd end up calling the person on my weekend off. And that became an issue, because that interferes with family life.
Yeah.
And it would affect me. It would stress me out. So coming back, my phone's not connected.
Right.
I don't check emails because I don't even have it connected to my phone.
Yeah.
There's no call out. I basically, and she always, Whitney always hears me say, I work 7 to 3 Monday through Friday.
Yeah.
I'm here. I'm here a little before 7, and then 3 o'clock, we could be mid conversation. I'm like, pick this up tomorrow.
Yep.
See you at 7.
That's exactly what he does.
I'm like, it's not like I'm downstairs and going home.
Right.
So
that's good though. That's not a bad way to be.
No, and I wish I would have moderated that a little more when I was here.
Sure.
But you know what? It's definitely a plus right now. It's like I said, I enjoy my weekends now. I don't stress about work, until I'm coming back to work that morning because I don't, I come in the morning sometimes and everyone's got baggy red eyes and I'm like, oh, what happened? Like, oh, we got called out. I'm like, oh, that's a shame.
That sucks.
Well, you guys look tired. Well, I'm making coffee, so if you want some, come get it. Yeah,
That's awesome.
So it's definitely, most of my career, I call out responsibility.
Right.
All the units I was in, I call out. So it's definitely nice to, not have that.
Right. Well, I think we're going to wrap up. Do you have anything you want to ask before I hit him with the last one?
No. Thank you so much for
you're welcome.
agreeing to come on. Yeah.
Only other thing I had, I always like to ask guys what they what advice they would impart on younger people, either in entertaining the idea of getting in a profession or starting off. Like, what advice would you give?
I would tell new officers, especially in this day and age, know what you're getting into. All right, do your homework. Look into like everything as far as what the lifestyle is. Be coming in for the right reasons. Don't look at this as, oh, it pays well, it's a job.
Yeah,
it's a career, it's a calling. Because if you just come into it because, oh, they're paying real well, you're gonna, you're not gonna make it.
Yeah.
I would say don't let this, one of the biggest things I say is don't let this become your life. And we're all guilty of it. When I got here, I used to come in on my days off for free to work. Yeah, they put a stop to that because of liability. Like that, I mean, I was consumed with it, but
I was too, but that's nice.
Yeah,
level.
it was we used to come in to see how many foot chases we can get into and stuff. And I get it. It's new. It's exciting. It's why you chose this profession. But at the end of the day, now that I'm on the other side of it, I've seen too many guys leave this profession after multiple failed marriages.
Yeah.
Drugs, alcohol, guys who've passed away sadly because of it. Have that balance. I mean, all my friends were cops when I was going through it, but have an outlet. I always exercised. I did sport type things when, always to kind of blow it off. I had a great home life. That was huge. To be able to leave here, after stressed and aggravated, focus on your home life, because that was my safe space. Right. I'd go home and my wife would make it where I could relax. I would just say, like I said, know what you're getting into. Be open to learning. You're never going to know it all. Don't think you know it all. Trying to think what else. That was it. I mean, like I said, don't neglect your family. That's a big one, because with good family support, I look at it this way: with great family support, you have a great career. Yeah. Because you're allowed to focus on your job, your profession, and not your outside problems. Yeah. And then I would always say too, branch out when you become an officer. Some guys spend their whole careers in patrol and they're great at it and they love it. Yeah. Which is great. I mean, but sometimes I think it's good to maybe do some time in other units so you kind of get a little more rounded. You learn some stuff. But it's what you like. But find what you like and run with it. Take learn as much as you can about it. Learn from other officers. Best resources. I know everybody's like, oh, this, the old timer, he's grouchy, grumpy. But I'll tell you, a lot of those old timers have more knowledge than you can even imagine. Definitely. I mean, there's a lot of wisdom to be imparted, and the fact that they're still here tells you they knew how to do it. So
and the fact that they're grouchy oftentimes tends to be because they've made mistakes in the past, and they're grouchy because they have a failed marriage or two, or they've had some of these issues, and it's like, let me talk to that guy and figure out what he encountered that led him down a certain path, and I can avoid it or take a different one.
And then I would say, this job isn't for everybody. I would say, if it's not for you, get out once you come in, because it will ruin you. But I mean, and like I said, it's not for everybody, and don't let it ruin your life. Don't let it cause you extra stress. If you're not happy, you're not happy. I mean, like I said, there were many careers I couldn't do. Yeah. I just couldn't do, but I had a great career here. I loved it. Don't regret anything. Would do it again. Yeah. And that's probably what I'd tell them. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. And then I remember the advice I was told my first year that played really well was, be seen, not heard. Yeah. Nobody cared about my opinion the first year. Nobody cared what I had to say. Yep. Be seen, not heard. Listen and learn, and that'll be great groundwork for your future.
Let your name get out there behind your work, not your mouth.
Yep. Let your actions prove how good you are. Yep. Absolutely. And I think that alone will put you on a path to have a successful career. Yeah. It really is probably some of the best advice I was given. Yeah. Yep.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it, man.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
It was good to get to know you. I passed you in the hall all the time, and I never got to talk to you. So
glad I got to do it.
All right. Well, until next time, guys.